Hello, everyone. My name is Maida Salkanovic. I am from Bosnia and Herzegovina and the US, and I am an ERMA alumna. I graduated from ERMA in 2017. I currently work for a Sarajevo-based organization called Why Not, or in Bosnian Zašto ne, and I work on one of their platforms dedicated to fact-checking called Raskrinkavanje, or in English, debunking. We work on debunking inaccurate media and social media claims, in short. Through Zašto ne, I also work for CCheck, which is a regional Southeastern European platform that works on promotion of media accountability, improving media literacy, and combating misinformation and disinformation. So, as you can tell from the short introduction, a lot of what I do is analysis of disinformation landscape and working with all types of disinformation out there. One of those is definitely climate disinformation. In the world we live in today, you can imagine that there's actually quite a bit of climate disinformation. So that is what today's lecture will be, climate disinformation. So this is what I was planning. I was planning to walk you through basic concepts, definition, etc. So you can understand all the terms that we will be using. Then we will be talking about some of the most common climate disinformation, what types, and also I'll give some examples, and then we will briefly touch on some potential causes of climate change disinformation. Then we will be talking about when to expect climate disinformation, when is it frequent, and lastly, what can we do about it, or what can all of you do about it? Okay. So let's start with our basic concepts. We have disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theory, pseudoscience, and I thought it was wise to include terms like claim and fact. So let's start with the first one, disinformation. Disinformation is false information which is deliberately intended to mislead. So basically, intentionally misstating the facts. Misinformation, on the other hand, is false or inaccurate information, getting the facts wrong. So basically, the difference between the two is intention. And misinformation, you will actually find a lot of different definitions, a lot of different usages of these terms, especially in different languages. In Bosnian, for example, we have a bit of a situation in which the terms are not exactly translated or exactly translatable to English, from English to Bosnian, because there are slight differences in meaning. But basically, the way I use the term misinformation is that it's sort of an umbrella term covering all of these different types of misinformation, of false information, of incorrect information, or incorrect claims, better yet. And then the next one that I thought, I only selected a few that I thought would be relevant to the topic of climate disinformation. And one of those is a conspiracy theory. And here I would like to use the actual definition that Raskrinkavanje uses in their methodology. So basically, when a media report gets a rating conspiracy theory, that means that it portrayed a false or unverifiable description of an occurrence, event, or person, presenting it as a part or result of a hidden plan or conspiracy. So typical of such content is that they make a series of claims that are presented as facts, between which cause and effect relationships are established without offering any credible evidence. So basically what happens here is people who propagate conspiracy theories would find a piece of information, interpret it one way. So like they would make a claim about it. Sometimes they're based on actual materials that are real materials that are misinterpreted. But basically, they will find a connection between these different events, but not really offer any sort of evidence or any sort of credible evidence other than just them thinking it makes sense. So I'll give you an example that is from the climate disinformation realm. So basically, there was a video online showing controlled burning or prescribed burning, which means that a part of the forest was actually predetermined to actually for the mostly fire people or the people who do forestry maintenance to set some fires because that's an important tool when it's controlled fire, right? Important tool for maintaining the health and safety of a forest. So this is done for a bunch of different reasons. One of them is that by getting rid of these flammable materials, right, like dead leaves, tree limbs, and other debris under controlled conditions, we can actually help prevent forest wildfires, destructive forest wildfires. There are also other reasons, such as that it helps with the nutrients in the soil because when those ashes from the burnt vegetation fall on the soil, they contain those nutrients that would otherwise take a lot more time to decompose. And a bunch of other reasons, but I'm not a specialist on that. But basically, this video was found somewhere online, and it was used to claim that these fires are being lit on purpose, and then for them to be sort of an evidence of climate change. So for the people who made them to pretend that they're caused by climate change, and then for it to be blamed on us, the common folks, right? Which is, you'll see a narrative that's very common in some of these conspiracy theories. So yeah, that was an example of conspiracy theory. Another term that I think is very important when we talk about climate disinformation is pseudoscience. So something that presents as science, but is in fact not. So when we give a rating of pseudoscience, it's given to a media report that attempts to present certain opinions, views, values, or findings obtained by a non-scientific method as scientific findings or facts. So such reports often take existing scientific research and then misinterpret it or manipulate it, and or they invoke research that is actually inconsistent with scientific verification and fact-finding. What does this actually mean? It means that if there's if there's legitimate scientific research, it can be used, it can be misinterpreted to support some of these disinformation, some of these conspiracy theories very often, and also that some research that presents as actually done by scientific methods and it's not, maybe it's published in a predatory journal or something similar, that it's being used to kind of lend legitimacy to the claims of the people who propagate these conspiracy theories very often, or just disinformation about climate. And in this case, or another way that that sort of legitimacy is being given or attempted to be given to some of these claims is by having authorities speak about it. So For example, it could be we've had this during the pandemic. It could be a scientist who used to have actually quite a bit of good reputation, that then something happened, and then they're giving all these non-scientific or pseudoscientific claims, and then they are being used, their authority is actually being used, it's being used instead of actually using the facts, because what they're saying would actually not be cannot be supported by facts. Or maybe this was also another example. There are people with the title doctor, and then this is being touted as some sort of confirmation of their of actually them being able to provide all of these health claims a lot of times, and in reality maybe they have like a PhD in English or something like that. So that's sort of connected with pseudoscience. It's kind of like a presentation of it, but in general pseudoscience would be using these non-scientific arguments and presenting them as scientific. So one example would be when it comes to climate is a very common claim that actually there is no increases in temperature, and the Earth is actually heading into a mini ice age. So this is usually supported by the fact that the sun is heading towards a period of low output. But what this means is that, I mean, fluctuations in solar activity are not exactly a new discovery, and the scientists already built that into the computer models that are used to try and forecast the climate. So that would be an example of kind of like a pseudoscientific claim. Hey, the sun is going to be is going into like this period of lower output, so that means that there's no way that the Earth could be warming, and basically we are heading into a mini ice age. So I hope that's that's clear. Let's go to the next important term, and that's claim. This is kind of like, this is common in the fact-checking industry, to use claims, and basically that's an assertion of the truth, that typically one that is disputed or in doubt. So we use claim quite a bit. You'll see that in fact-checking reports. And then the last one, but definitely not the least, is fact. And this one is, it has very interesting definitions. So basically, a fact is a thing that is known or proved to be true. As you can tell, this is sort of this can be, depending on who is reading that, this can be open to interpretation, but facts are not open to interpretation. So basically, a fact is something that's indisputable. So for example, the video that we talked about earlier, if someone is claiming, hey, this happened because they want to destroy the forest and blame the alleged global climate change for it, then if we find the origins of that video and we see that, for example, the people from the Forestry Service posted that on their page and explained, they said, hey, we're doing this controlled fire, this is what's going to be happening, this is why. So basically they're explaining everything, and we see that it makes sense and it is in line with what's shown on the video. Then we can say, okay, this is a fact, this video was posted on this date on this account, which shows. So the fact is that the video is posted on that account, that that is something that's indisputable. Okay, good. So basically, now that we know the definitions, let's talk about some of the most common disinformation. This is I don't think this is very surprising for anyone, and this is quite simple, but this is basically these are basically some of the most common claims. And before we start, I just want to note that climate disinformation is a global phenomenon. It happens everywhere. I am giving examples from one specific area, one specific geographic area, because that is the focus of my work. But very often, these disinformation are not actually locally grown, but they're taken from disinformation channels from other areas, from other languages. So please keep that in mind, that the free flow of this information, if you will, especially with the ease of spreading the disinformation, especially with things like social media and all of these messaging apps, groups, etc. Okay, good. So the most common type of disinformation that you will encounter is climate change denial. What does that mean? It basically means that people come and say, this is just not happening. They are inventing this. It's exaggerated by fabricated data, etc. So this is very often this kind of like comes with these conspiracy theories. And it's important to note that for conspiracy theories, a lot of times if a person is into one conspiracy theory, they're usually into others as well. So it's sort of a very connected, interconnected kind of thing. So basically, if the person is saying climate change does not exist, this is made up, they will usually say that's made up because there's this group of powerful people who are trying to, and then there's different goals that they ascribe to the unnamed group of powerful people, or sometimes a named group of powerful people. And then it kind of like, then from then on, it ties into things like they want to make us, they don't want to kind of like capture the population. They want to make us be slaves, etc. And a lot of of these conspiracy theories. The other very common disinformation narrative is that the climate change it does exist, but it's not caused by humans, but it's basically just sort of like a normal cycle of climate change. And then there's variations in all of these. Basically, some people just say that this has happened before and it will be happening again. We will be going into ice age, or the earth will burn, or whatever you have. Or then you have another thing. So basically, these people kind of like pick what they want to believe, or basically things kind of like stick based on, I mean, this is a very normal human process, based on what you already know, based on what you believe, based on what you want to believe. So another group is the people who say that, okay, yes, there are increased levels of CO2, but CO2 is not a pollutant. And then they say it's either like, oh, it's not connected with climate change at all, or they say that increase in CO2 is actually useful. So as you can tell, I cannot really give you a clear series of a few claims that are basically just a few claims that go around, that circulate, that happen. But this is more like sort of like those are sort of umbrella narratives under which a lot of these different claims happen. So that's just something to keep in mind, that there are variations based on where the disinformation originated, based on who actually came up with the disinformation, and a lot of different factors. So when can we, oh, sorry, we're talking about the causes. So basically, these are some of the potential causes that I have collected. So we can talk a little bit about this. There are some studies that are done, but I cannot really I cannot really sit here and tell you, oh, disinformation, climate change disinformation is caused 50% by social media, 15% by lack of trust in institutions, etc. But this is more of a mixture of different factors, and it has it just has uh, a lot of different variables in there. So I would say that social media is one of the factors. In that it's enabled people to connect with others who have similar beliefs, and then that's one way. So basically connecting people, and then those people sort of provide this sort of a loop, an echo chamber, and they kind of like they get validation of their opinions, of their beliefs. Oh, see, 100 people like this, so it must be true. People agree with me, that means I'm right, etc. That's one way. Another way in which social media contributed is that it's enabled pretty much anyone to be a creator. And I mean, like, this happens on other places, on online, but social media are just a very easy sort of platform for this. So basically, anyone can post whatever they want, and then if people like it, if it fits with their preconceived notions, then they can choose to believe in it. So that's sort of one of the side effects of the democratization of media, if you will. Um, Okay, another thing is lack of trust in these formal knowledge institutions and government institutions, in the media. And I would say that got exacerbated quite a bit during the COVID-19 pandemic, when there was a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of fails on behalf of these institutions to sort of build trust in communication with their constituencies, with their consumers, etc. So I would say that was the time when this sort of kind of gotten a little bit more prominent. Another thing would be, but just keep in mind, this is definitely not the deciding factor. Um, but yeah, let me just list it: lack of education, or the inability to synthesize knowledge that you do have. So I just want to kind of mention a very important caveat here, and that's that if someone is not formally educated, that does not mean that they will be going around spreading disinformation. A lot of times people have common sense and use reason to basically make conclusions, etc. But lack of education, I would say, would be a factor if it meets all of these other conditions. And let me just say, also, a lot of people who are very highly educated formally actually are propagators of conspiracy theories, of a lot of these types of disinformation. So I just want to kind of point that out, but I would say that the lack of knowledge, which is usually learned in formal education, the lack of knowledge about these processes, about weather, climate, etc., could contribute. Another one would be not actually understanding scientific principles, which would be similar to the above, but basically, I would say that people also really like easy solutions. So if someone comes and tells you, hey, this is happening, and it's kind of like very simple and easy for you to understand, you are more likely to adopt that stance than a different one that's more complicated, etc. And we see that when we get comments below our fact check sometimes. I've seen comments like, oh, when I see this much text, I know that it's a lie. So basically, people want very simple solutions, and sometimes you just can't provide that. You need to have background knowledge. You need to be able to. You need to know this really well in order to be able to sort of convey that knowledge in simple terms. And I think that's also another thing. I think the media, well, depending on where in the world you are, right? But a lot of times the media might not have that knowledge. So if they're reporting about weather, if they're reporting about climate, they might make some mistakes, or they might, out of fear of conveying something wrong, they might use overly complicated terms, etc. And the last cause that I believe contributes to creating these conspiracy theories, etc., is fear. So basically, I think it's one of the sort of defense mechanisms. So if you are faced with an imminent danger and there's not really much that you can do about it, one one of the things your brain might do is basically just say, no, this is not true. I reject this. This is actually what's happening here. So I think that might play a role. That might play a role in this. So let's see. When do we expect this information about climate? So usually, I mean, it's consistent. It's always there, but it increases when there are things like extreme weather conditions. So, for example, when there's high temperatures in the summer, or like extreme snow in the winter, or when there's weather events. So, for example, storms. I I would like to mention an example of an event that was brought by extreme weather conditions, and that was the devastating fires in Hawaii in August, when there was a lot of irreparable damage done. So one of the things that was pretty popular globally was that this was actually that the fires in Maui in Hawaii were caused intentionally by people by using something called directed energy weapons or lasers, etc. And one of the things that people who sort of spread these theories did was they would search for photos of the fire wreckage and find blue items. And then for them, that was evidence that, nothing blue burned, and that the fire was caused by a laser that was set to a specific frequency that did not recognize the blue color. So everything blue was left out of the fire. Then there were some other, as I said, those conspiracy theories rarely sort of run by themselves. So they would find celebrities there whose houses didn't burn. I believe one of them might have had a blue roof or something like that, and then they were claiming that that was evidence that it was done on purpose to destroy the people of lower socioeconomic status, etc., so that these rich people can keep Maui to themselves. Another conspiracy theory was that The Simpsons predicted this in one of their episodes. Of course, we debunked all of these using facts. In this particular example, I believe the Simpsons episode was manipulated. Two different episodes were put together, etc. And then they claimed that it all came from one episode. So, for example, there was something about Hawaii, and then in the other episode, there was something about some sort of a laser that attacked Springfield in Simpsons. And then they put it together and they said, you see, this is actually what's happening here. Look, they've been telling us this. Okay, so as for weather events such as storms, there was an example last year in July in 2023. There were really big storms in and around Southeast Europe, and then in Italy there was giant hail, and then people were claiming that the hail was inorganic, that it was tested in a lab, and that it showed harmful substances, and it was artificially made, and it was made to harm people, which of course also wasn't true. Okay, so another time when you can expect these disinformation is when there are prominent conferences about climate, protests, etc. So basically, anytime you can hear a bit more mention of climate in the media, that's the time when these will sort of start to emerge. One of the examples would be the climate activist Greta Thunberg, and she's a very popular target of conspiracy theorists or disinformation propagators. So, for example, there was fabricated text going around in which it claimed that it sort of described this non-existing anecdote where Greta Thunberg was asking the Chinese not to eat with chopsticks as it's not environmentally sustainable, and then they had some sort of a smart comeback, and then they made her look like a fool. So that was one example. Another example was that was more recent, a video that circulated online in which allegedly Greta Thunberg was asking for participants in wars to use environmentally sustainable alternatives to traditional weapons, such as vegan bombs. So basically, in this video, she was presented as someone who really cares about the environment but doesn't care about people. Kill them as long as you kill them with vegan bombs. So you can see how this sort of disinformation, completely made up claims, was used to discredit this climate change activist, and that's how disinformation is used in a lot of cases. This particular video was a deep fake, meaning that it was created with artificial intelligence. Okay, good. So now that we've gone through all of this, let's see, what is it that we can do? So basically, fact checking is one of the ways to combat disinformation, and this is pretty, I would say, pretty developed right now. So I would like to invite you to follow the fact checking websites in your region, to follow them on social media, because very often if something's current, if something's happening right now, they will be the ones to know about it. If it's correct or not, then please do report any sort of any piece of information that seems, any claims that seem suspicious to you. Most of these fact-checking websites actually have a section where their audience can submit a request for a fact check. So another thing is pre-bunking, and that's generally a fact-checking concept, but it could sort of be adopted to be used in a different context. Let me explain what that is. Basically, pre-bunking is strategy to counter disinformation before it spreads. So basically to inform people in advance about possible disinformation and deception methods before they actually encounter disinformation. So this way, people will build sort of resilience against this sort of false information. And then also, hopefully, it will help strengthen their critical thinking and analytical skills, and then making it easier to recognize and reject these false claims when they come to them. So this would be, for example, if we know when the disinformation might be coming, and we just covered that, then we might, as a fact checker, I might see, oh, okay, there was an earthquake. I know what sort of claims will be emerging around earthquakes, and then so I might decide to publish something that already talks about that, so that people can see that there first, and then when they encounter this information, they can say, oh, wait, well, this is not correct. What you can do in your everyday life is actually familiarize yourself with basic climate and climate change facts. So you can actually do a version of this, basically helping people in your environment who might not have had the chance to learn about these topics, help them learn them, and help them fight disinformation. And the last thing I would like to say is please do have a sensitive approach. If we are very kind of like combative toward people when we talk about these sort of topics, they can get very combative, and they can just outright reject everything that we're telling them. So I would say maybe take a softer approach, and do not preach, basically, but have an honest conversation. So that was my presentation for today. Thank you so much, and I hope this was useful to you.